Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. So today I'd like to answer a question that's been coming up a lot in my comments, emails, even Reddit posts, which is how do you know it won't happen again somewhere else? What they're referring to is the time that I've had as a business owner in New York State over the past three and a half years, which has really cemented in my head that I need to get my business out of that state and never go back. Excuse me during this video if I'm not really good switching tabs or typing. As you can see, Mr. Clinton over here has not only his head, but also his right paw hooked over my wrist so I cannot lift this up without disturbing him, which would be absolutely horrible, illegal, and honestly, let's be real, if you disrupt a cat that is sitting in such a fashion, it should probably be punishable by death. So I'm not going to be doing anything like that. So I'm going to try to get this video done without disturbing Mr. Clinton, who is quietly resting and sleeping on my wrist. So in some of the videos that I've done, I've gone over things that have aggravated me about doing business here, whether it's being fined for things that I did that they can't tell me how to avoid. I include call recordings of me attempting to figure out what it is I need to do to obey their laws, or whether we're talking about audits that go on for over a year, where they ask for more than my entire net worth. How they calculate that is beyond me, and at the end of it, they wind up saying, okay, my bad, bro, we just want a few $1,000s, and me saying, okay, well, I'm trying to give the Italian, the fist over here and then this over there, but I can't because Clinton's over there. It's just so tempting to wake him up, but I can't do it. He's so cute. Anyway, I have decided to leave, and people will say, well, how do you know that's just not going to happen somewhere else? Or you think that another state is perfect. And no, I don't. I don't have any illusions. I think that most governments are massively screwed up for a number of different reasons, and I'm sure that they all have their ways of screwing over their constituents. That being said, there's a few different ways to tackle this from. And the first way I want to tackle this from is just by going over incentives. And I wanted to do that with some anecdotes that I had. So back 10 years ago, I'm never going to forget this one particular customer that came in. It sticks with me, who had an A1278 with liquid damage on the keyboard that was also causing their computer to not turn on. This was an excellent litmus test of honesty and also bureaucratic incompetence of a repair shop. This is a very easy one to get wrong, because on the A1278 model, the power button is attached to the keyboard. So if you get liquid damage on your Z key, it will affect the power button and keep it from turning on. The keyboard is also powered by the main power rail, PP3V42_G3 hot, that's necessary to get a green light on the charger. So not only can the power button be affected and held down to where it's not working properly if you get liquid on the Z key, but also it can keep the entire computer from turning on. It can keep the charger light from lighting up because it's shorting that power rail to ground. So many customers will believe... They would... I'm just going to throw it out there that I think there'd be less gun violence in America if less home appliances sang to you. Just throwing that out there. This machine is a litmus test of both bureaucracy and honesty because it's very easy to misdiagnose. A customer will go to the Apple store and it's not turning on, and they would say, I got liquid on it, and the Apple store would do what the Apple store does best, which is tell them they need the entire motherboard replaced with a high price. So when they go to the independent, they're already expecting to need a board repair, and the machine is not turning on. There's no way to tell exactly what it is without taking everything apart. So it's very easy for somebody to misdiagnose this as needing a board repair. So there was a customer that had come in and they were told most likely this would need board repair. You spilled something on the keyboard. Most likely you're going to need a keyboard replacement and a motherboard fix because you spilled liquid on the keyboard. They said some of the keys weren't working and then it died and turned off. So I had taken the machine out. I had taken the motherboard out of the machine and I was busy doing something else. I had to take a phone call or do something else. The person who does the keyboard replacements took the device off of the shelf, assumed that I had fixed the motherboard in the device because the motherboard was working, replaced the keyboard, called the customer and told them their device was ready for pickup and billed them the amount that they had approved for the keyboard replacement and the motherboard repair. It was only later when I asked what had happened with that machine that I saw that I had not left a note that this person did not actually need a motherboard repair. So they paid for motherboard repair and keyboard replacement when the only thing that they needed all along was keyboard replacement. Now, I wasn't intending to screw them. I had to take a phone call. I did not have time to write in the notes that the motherboard was fine. my receptionist, who was doing my keyboard replacements, was not trying to screw this customer. She knows that I typically tend to leave machines on this particular counter once I have fixed the board and it is ready for the keyboard replacement, because I wasn't doing the keyboard replacements. I was doing the board repair. Since I was the only one doing the board repair back then, I didn't have time to do keyboard replacements, and she had billed the customer what they had originally agreed to. This was just a bureaucratic error. My bad, a bit of incompetence. We were not intending to screw that person. However, this bureaucratic incompetence just so happened to result in me having a few extra $100 in my bank account and them not knowing any better. Now, the reason that I remember this 10 years later is because this happened right around the time that I had closed my Brooklyn store, which had resulted in me losing about $15,000 or $25,000 because it was a stupid idea to open a second location in the same city in an area that didn't have a large customer base. So I went to call back the customer, and there was a good 5 minutes where I actually debated to myself whether or not this was a good idea. They were happy. If I call them back to tell them we misbilled them, they're going to trust us less. They may be mad. They already paid less than half of what they would have paid at Apple, and I have a few extra $100 in my bank account. I felt so ashamed at the end of this that I wound up not even calling back the customer. I shit you not, I wound up just logging into our credit card system and literally refunding them the entire job. And they called back later to ask why, and to this day I didn't tell them why. It was because for 5 minutes I actually debated whether or not I should give a customer back their money for paying for shit that we didn't do. I felt so fucking guilty that I actually just figured, fuck it, they deserve their entire money back. At the end of the day, they were not just refunded the board repair part, they were also refunded the keyboard replacement, which we actually did, which in my opinion was a fitting punishment for the actual 5 minutes that I spent debating whether I should do the right thing. Why does this matter? When it comes to these types of things, I think people will assume malice when at the end of the day, it just comes down to stupidity. However, if you let that stupidity go unchecked, that is where the malice comes in. And that's where I think it's important to start discussing whether or not it is likely for something like this to happen somewhere else. Do you have an incentive structure as a result of going broke to just let the bureaucratic errors go if they just so happen to result in a few extra $100 or $1,000 or $1 million coming your way? Again, you didn't do anything wrong. It's not like you were trying to screw them. It just so happened that somebody else was doing their job and made a mistake. So you're benefiting, but you're benefiting from somebody else doing something that was a mistake, that wasn't intentionally bad, and you're not actively screwing anybody. You're just not correcting it, which to some people allows them to sleep at night, even though it shouldn't. And one of the things that I've talked about in many of the videos on my channel, New York shoots itself in the foot with a $100 billion budget, or just what shows up in the news. New York's economic mess awaits Governor Hochul after win, deficit deepening as income taxes slide, pandemic aid drives up, and the news that has come out about the state that I've moved to. Texas projects a record $32.7 billion budget surplus driven by sales tax. In this news article, it says that Texas is forecasting a record $32.7 billion budget surplus as a surge in sales taxes boost the government revenue by billions more than what analysts had expected. The expected surplus, also called a cash carryover balance, is the largest on record for the Lone Star State and 21% more than the $27 billion forecast in July, Comptroller Glenn Hagar announced Monday. Including the extra cash and taking into account transfers to reserve funds, he projects the state will have a $188.2 billion of revenue available for general purpose spending during the 2-year period that begins in September. What's cool is that this is not just let's just spend a bunch of money on stupid shit. It says of the total, about $10.2 billion must be transferred to the Economic Stabilization Fund, or Rainy Day Fund, which is intended to help the state cope with an economic downturn, and the State Highway Fund. The surplus stands in contrast to New York and California, which are each expecting budget gaps in the upcoming fiscal year. So you have one state that is spending money that they don't have, and you have another state that says, oh, we have extra money, let's put that away in case there's a rainy day. Which one of those states do you think is more likely to look the other way if bureaucratic stupidity, again, not malice, just bureaucratic stupidity, results in them collecting more money? The state with a multi-billion-dollar rainy day fund and a growing tax base, or the place with a budget that they haven't actually balanced with giant deficits and a dwindling tax base? I do not think that any state in the United States is perfect. And I most certainly don't believe that there is a single state in the United States with a government that gives a crap about me. And that includes Texas. I am sorry. I just don't have a lot of faith that my elected officials, anywhere that I go, actually give a crap about me. But there are ways to try and figure out what you believe the chances are. The chances, because there's no certainties. The chances are that the same thing is going to happen again. My guess is that the reason most of these bureaucratic overreaches tend to go unchecked and tend to lean in the direction of trying to take me for my entire net worth tend to be because they're running out of money. And if they're running out of money, then, again, if somebody makes a mistake, but it just so happens to be in the direction of we get more money, is what it is. Like I don't think anybody's going to really care as much the same way they would if they were doing very well and didn't actually need the money. The reason that I even for 5 minutes thought to myself about whether I should call that customer to refund their money is because I had a giant deficit and I was concerned about how I'd even be able to pay my employees, much less myself, over the next few months. At the end of the day, I made the right decision, and I think punishing myself by giving the customer a full refund as a result of having a shit diagnosis and actually doing the douchebag thing of thinking about whether I should give them their money back, I think that set me on the right course. Would I have even thought about doing that if my finances were in order? Probably not. It literally wouldn't have even been a question. And I can imagine how this type of thing scales. Like it's not that somebody's thinking, I am going to destroy this person, I'm going to destroy this business. It's just they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing their job. They make a mistake. And then when the mistake ends up making you more money, what do you do about it at that point? What do you do when you know you can get away with it? The second thing that I can do is say the basic research that I did. I looked into the budget of the area that I chose to live in. I spoke to the tax collector. I spoke to the comptroller and just to figure out what it was like to actually get straight answers here. The items that were disputed over the course of that 14-month audit, I was able to figure out, I kid you not, in a 7-minute phone call to the comptroller's office. Within 7 minutes, I was on the line with somebody who took about 90 seconds to answer my questions. Now, just because this was the cause of a very contentious audit in New York State, I decided to just ask, hey, I hate doing this to you. I'm so sorry. Is there any way you could just double check with somebody else before I start actually taking in sales, whether or not how this is supposed to work and how this is supposed to be sales tax for all these different things? And she said, yeah, no problem. I understand completely. She came back and she explained in some more detail. And within 10 minutes, I had all the answers that I needed. I called the local government to ask what licenses I would need and why I couldn't find them on their website. And they said, you're not. You must be from New York. You do not need 3 licenses to do what you do here. You need 0. So there's not going to be an inspector to come in to fine me for that particular thing that I was fined for because they don't have an inspector for it because there's no fake bullshit ass license for it so that the city can collect money. They just collect it through sales tax, and that sales tax is very, 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 very simple code in contrast to what they have in New York State for the business that I was doing. So, yes, that makes my life easier. Again, I have no problem with obeying the rules. I'm happy to obey the rules if you are willing to tell me what the rules are. And as I have said, in New York, they cannot tell me what the rules are. The reason that audit went on for so long is because there is just so much confusion over what the rules actually are. And here, I don't have that. So I can call in the very beginning, ask what I'm supposed to be doing, and then actually do it, and we're all happy. The state gets their money, I get my money, I pay my taxes, I do what I'm supposed to do, and we're all good. The third way I'd like to come at this is just, why be such a pacifist when it comes to this? You wouldn't apply this mindset to anything else. I don't think anybody would say, well, okay, so you're leaving your husband who beats you. Well, how do you know the next guy you meet won't beat you? Like, no. A, if somebody says they're not going to beat you anymore, they already beat you once, which means you probably can't trust them, so leave. And B, that doesn't mean that you never date again because you're afraid that everybody is going to beat you. It simply means that you try to pick better next time. Try to figure out what the red flags were that you overlooked. Ask some more questions, get to know the person a little bit better before you marry them or become intimate with them. It doesn't mean that you stop dating. It just means that you change your approach. And the same thing is going to be true here. It doesn't mean that I stop running businesses in other states. It simply means that I do a little bit of due diligence to figure out whether that's a place that's likely to do the same things that they were before. There are no certainties in life. There are no guarantees. There are odds and bets. Everything we do here at the end of the day is making a bet. I made a bet that I think is going to be better for the people that I now employ. And I feel massive, massive guilt that I let my company go from 3 people to 12 to 16 people without really doing that due diligence in a state that I really should not have been trying to grow my business in. Because what that meant is that there were people that worked at my company for several years that would have not been able to move, that's put time and effort into working for me when they could have put that time and effort into working at another company or working for themselves. That's guilt that I got to live with. But yeah, why am I willing to try out again somewhere else? How do I know it's not going to happen again? I don't. There's no guarantees. There's only chances. And from what I see and from the experiences that I've had, I believe that there is a lesser chance of me getting asinine fines for shit that literally cannot be explained to me by city or state government here and attempts to take my entire net worth away, then what happens back there? Is there a certainty? No. Is the local government here capable of doing lots of stupid shit? Probably. And I'm sure I'm going to learn about all of it as time goes on. But yeah, my guess, it's less bad than it was before. And I'm not going to stop running businesses because I don't know if it's going to happen again. Just going to put in some work to try to insulate myself from it ever happening again. And so far, again, the experiences that I've had here, like, they haven't sucked. Maybe my bar is just so low. Like, I don't expect it to be good. I don't expect it to be amazing. It's just like, just don't suck. I don't know. That's about that. So I will link this video anytime I get this question in a comment again. And I will see you in the next one. Sorry for this being kind of rambly. Don't really have a script for these things. I just kind of make it up as I go. See you in the next one.